Now read this.
Hello and welcome back to Now Read This, The Chronicles of Prydain, Book 5, The High King, by Lloyd Alexander, Chapter 16, The Enchanter. Like a weary child, the old man hunched over the book-strewn table, his head upon his arm. Across his bony shoulders he had flung a cloak. The fire still flickered in the hearth, but the chill of this winter sank into him more deeply than any other he could remember. At his feet, Hen Wen stirred restlessly and whimpered in a high, plaintive voice. Dalben, who was neither altogether asleep nor awake, reached down a frail hand and gently scratched her ear. The pig would not be calmed. Her pink snout twitched. She snorted and muttered unhappily and tried to hide her head in the folds of his robe. The enchanter at last roused himself. "What is it, Hen? Is our time upon us?" He gave the pig a reassuring pat and rose stiffly from the wooden stool. "Tut! It is a moment to pass, no more than that, whatever the outcome." Without haste, he took up a long ash-wood staff and, leaning on it, hobbled from the chamber. Hen Wen trotted at his heels. At the cottage door, he pulled the cloak tighter about him and stepped into the night. The moon was at its full, riding distant in a deep sky. Dalben stood, listening carefully. To another's ears, the little farm would have seemed silent as the moon itself, but the old enchanter, his brow furrowed, his eyes half closed, nodded his head. "You are right, Hen," he murmured. "I hear them now, but they are still far. What then?" he added, with a wrinkled smile. "Must I wait long for them and freeze the little marrow left in my bones?" Nevertheless, he did not return within the cottage, but moved a few paces across the dooryard. His eyes, which had been heavy with drowsiness, grew bright as ice crystals. He peered sharply past the leafless trees of the orchard, as though to see into the shadows entwining the circling forest like black ivy tendrils. Hen Wen stayed behind, sitting uneasily on her haunches and watching the enchanter with much concern on her broad, bristly face. "I should say there are 20 of them," Dalben remarked, then added wryly, "I do not know whether to be insulted or relieved. Only 20. It is a paltry number, yet more than that would be too cumbersome for the long journey, especially through the fighting in the valley of Eastred. No, 20 would be deemed ample and well chosen." For some time the old man stood quietly and patiently. At last, through the clear air, a faint sound of hoofbeats grew more insistent, then stopped, as if the riders had dismounted and were walking their steeds. Against the dark tangle of trees, where the forest rose at the edge of the stubble field, the darting shapes could have been no more than shadows cast by the bushes. Dalben straightened, raised his head, and blew out his breath as gently as if he were puffing at thistledown. In an instant, a biting gale shrieked across the field. The farm was calm, but the wind ripped with the force of 1,000 swords into the forest, where the trees clashed and rattled. Horses whinnied, men shouted, as branches suddenly lashed against them. The gale beat against the warriors, who flung up their arms to shield themselves from it. Still, the war band pressed on, struggling through the wind-whipped forest and at last gaining the stubble field. At the onset of the gale, Hen Wen, squealing fearfully, had turned tail and dashed into the cottage. Dalben raised a hand, and the wind died as quickly as it had risen. Frowning, the old man smote his staff on the frozen turf. Deep thunder muttered, the ground shuddered, and the field heaved like a restless sea. The warriors staggered and lost their footing, and among the attackers many fled to the safety of the forest, hastening to escape, fearful the earth itself might open and swallow them. The rest, urging each other on, drew their swords and stumbled across the field, racing toward the cottage. With some vexation, Dalbin thrust out his arm with fingers spread, as though he were casting pebbles into a pond. From his hand, a crimson flame spurted and stretched like a fiery lash in blinding streaks against the black sky. The warriors cried out as ropes of crackling flame caught at them and twined about their arms and legs. The horses broke loose and galloped madly into the woods. The attackers threw down their weapons and tore frantically at their cloaks and jackets. Howling in pain and terror, the men reeled and plunged in full flight back to the forest. The flames vanished. Dalbin, about to turn away, glimpsed one figure which still pressed across the empty field. Alarmed, the old man gripped his staff and hobbled as quickly as he could into the cottage. The warrior was striding past the stables and into the dooryard. With footfalls pounding behind him, Dalbin hurried across the threshold, but the old man had no sooner gained the refuge of his chamber than the warrior burst through the doorway. Dalbin spun about to face his assailant. "Beware!" cried the enchanter. "Beware! Take no step closer!" Dalbin had drawn himself up to his full height. His eyes flashed, and his voice rang with such a commanding tone that the warrior hesitated. The man's hood had fallen back, and the firelight played over the golden hair and proud features of Prydain, son of Pwyll. Dalbin's eyes never faltered. "I have long awaited you, king of the West Domains." Prydain made as if to take a step forward. His hand dropped to the pommel of his naked sword at his belt. Yet the old man's glance held him. "You mistake my rank," Prydain said mockingly. "Now I rule a larger realm, Prydain itself." "What then?" replied Dalbin, feigning surprise. "Is Gwydion of the House of Dawn no longer High King of Prydain?" Prydain laughed harshly. "A king without a kingdom, a king in rags, hunted like a fox. Caer Dathyl has fallen, the sons of Dawn are scattered to the wind. This you already know, though it seems the tidings have reached you swiftly." "All tidings reach me swiftly," Dalbin said. "Swifter, perhaps, than they reach you." "Do you boast of your powers?" Prydain answered scornfully. "At the last, when you most needed them, they failed. Your spells did no more than frighten a handful of warriors. Does the crafty Dalbin take pride in putting churls to flight?" "My spells were not meant to destroy, only to warn," Dalbin replied. "This is a place of danger to all who enter against my will. Your followers heeded my warning. Alas, Lord Prydain, that you did not. These churls are wiser than their king, for it is not wisdom that a man should seek his own death." "Again, you are mistaken, wizard," Prydain said. "It is your death I seek." Dalbin tugged at the wisps of his beard. "What you may seek and what you may find are not always one, son of Pwyll," he said quietly. "Yes, you would take my life. That is no secret to me. Has Caer Dathyl fallen? That victory is hollow so long as Caer Dalbin stands and so long as I live. 2 strongholds have long stood against the Lord of Anuvin, a golden castle and a farmer's cottage. One lies in ruins, but the other is still a shield against evil and a sword ever pointed at Aron's heart. The Death Lord knows this, and knows as well that he cannot enter here, nor can his huntsmen and cauldron-born. Thus have you come," Dalbin added, "to do your master's bidding." A flush of anger spread over Prydain's face. "I am my own master," he cried. "If power is given me to serve Prydain, shall I fear to use it? I am no huntsman who kills for the joy of killing. I do what must be done and shrink not from it. My purpose is greater than the life of a man or 1,000 men, and if you must die, Dalbin, then so be it." Prydain ripped the sword from his belt, and in a sudden movement struck at the enchanter. But Dalbin had taken a firmer grip on his staff and raised it against the blow. Prydain's blade shattered upon the slender wood, and the shards fell ringing to the ground. Prydain cast the broken hilt from him, yet it was not fear that filled his eyes, but scorn. "I have been warned of your powers, wizard. I chose to prove them for myself." Dalbin had not moved. "Have you truly been warned? I think not. Had you been, you would not have dared to face me." "Your strength is great, wizard," Prydain said, "but not so great as your weakness. Your secret is known to me. Strive against me as you will. At the end, it is I who must conquer. Of all powers, one is forbidden you on pain of your own death. Are you master of winds? Can you make the earth tremble? This is useless toying. You cannot do what the lowest warrior can do. You cannot kill." From his cloak, Prydain had drawn a short, black dagger whose pommel bore the seal of Anuvan. "No such ban is laid upon me," he said. "As I have been warned, so have I been armed. This blade comes from the hand of Aron himself. It can be wielded despite all your spells." A look of pity and deep sorrow had come over Dalbin's wrinkled face. "Poor foolish man," he murmured. "It is true. This weapon of Anuvan can take my life, and I cannot stay your hand. But you are blind as the mole that toils in the earth. Ask now, Lord Prydain, which the master and which the slave? Aron has betrayed you." "Yes, betrayed you," Dalbin said, his voice sharp and cold. "You thought to make him serve you, yet all unwitting you have served him better than any of his hirelings. He sent you to slay me, and gives you the means to do it. Indeed, perhaps you shall slay me, but it will be Aron's triumph, not yours. Once you have done his bidding, you are a useless husk to the Lord of Anuvan. He knows full well that never will I let you depart alive from Caer Dalbin. You are a dead man, Lord Prydain, even as you stand here." Prydain raised the black dagger. "With words you seek to ward off your death." "See from the window," Dalbin answered. As he spoke, a crimson glow poured through the casement. A broad belt of flames had sprung up to circle Caer Dalbin. Prydain faltered and stepped back. "You have believed half-truths," Dalbin said. "No man has ever suffered death at my hands, but those who scorn my spells do so at their own peril. Slay me, Lord Prydain, and the flames you see will sweep over Caer Dalbin in an instant. There is no escape for you." Prydain's golden features were drawn in a look of disbelief, mingled with growing fear at the enchanter's words. "You lie," he whispered hoarsely. "The flames will die, even as you will die." "That, Lord, you must prove for yourself," Dalbin said. "I have my proof," Prydain cried. "Aron would not destroy what he seeks most. There were two tasks. In all your wisdom you did not guess them. Your death was only one, the other to gain the Book of 3. Dalbin shook his head sadly and glanced at the heavy leather-bound tome. "You have been doubly betrayed then. This book will no more serve Aron than it will serve any evil end. Nor will it serve you, Lord Prydain." The force of the old man's voice was like a cold wind. "You have steeped your hands in blood, and in your pride sought to pass judgment on your fellow men. Was it your concern to serve Prydain? You chose an evil means to do it. Good cannot come from evil. You leagued yourself with Aron for what you deemed a noble cause. Now you are a prisoner of the very evil you hoped to overcome. Prisoner and victim. For in the Book of 3 you are already marked for death." Dalbin's eyes blazed, and the truth of his words seemed to grip Prydain's throat. The king's face had turned ashen. With a cry, he flung away the dagger and clutched at the huge book. Desperately his hands reached out as if they would rip it asunder. "Touch it not!" Dalbin commanded, but Pryderi had already seized it. As he did so, a blinding bolt of lightning sprang like a blazing tree from the ancient tome. Pryderi's death shriek rang through the chamber. Dalbin turned away and bowed his head, as though some heavy grief had come upon him. Beyond the little farm, the circle of fire dwindled and faded in the quiet dawn.
Hey, you want to buy something? You can check the description for my books and audiobooks. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.